Layer cake federalism, remember it's different than marble federalism, right? So layer cake, the federal government has certain powers and the state government has separate powers. They don't really work together like we did with the marble cake. Sounds good, Alex. Yeah, and we'll go through it one at a time because when it's not review time, I can just look at those things. All right, I'm just going to pick out 3 cards here. You guys can stay, you can go. I'll record this either way because I at least had 2 people here that makes my day. Okay. Welfare Reform Act of 1996. All right, yeah, I'll just do it for like 10 minutes. All right. So this was passed by Republican-controlled Congress after 2 versions were vetoed by President Clinton. The law was based on what was called workfare, which many states used to pay for welfare. So the Welfare Reform Act fulfilled a campaign pledge made by Clinton to end welfare as we know it. It was a law that gave block grants to the states. Remember block grants, that was one of your multiple choice questions today. It's much more broad, right? And was how states can use it. So it changed the funding formula of the Aid to Families with Dependent Children's law. It successfully dismantled the federal welfare system, which had given federal money to welfare recipients without any requirement for the recipient to work. So, right, there's still the welfare system. So this, increased child care funding. They must work after 2 years. It eliminated benefits for families who received benefits for 5 consecutive years. Denied benefits to legal immigrants. It continued this food stamp program. Strengthened teen pregnancy prevention programs. I don't know how they would work this in. I don't think you're supposed to memorize this, but never I know. Let's see. Unfunded mandates. That one seems like more something you can get a question on. All right. Congress passed laws that the states had to fund without help from the government. So it means like we're Congress making a law. We're the federal government that you states have to do this, but we're not giving you money to do it. So unfunded mandates is just what the name implies. States objected to these laws, arguing they created an unfair burden to the taxpayers. A lot of these were rolled back under the Trump administration, especially with things like environmental regulations. All right, do one more from this pile. The Constitution and its principles. I think we know this. We know about separation of powers for the branches and also a division of powers between the federal and state governments. Checks and balances, right? The elastic clause that gives Congress implied powers. The president's given specific executive powers as well as implied powers. Those are called inherent powers. The Supreme Court, the amendment process, and a supremacy clause. All right, so just we know all these. All right, that's enough of this pile. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 5 more piles. I'm gonna do 3 of each, so you can say as long as you want. All right, so from this pile here, 17th Amendment. Ooh, that's a good then. You know what 17th Amendment is? An increased participation in the voting process. All right. And maintain that there's 2 senators from each state, but that the people get to vote for their senators. All right. If there's a vacancy, the governor can appoint it, but then eventually the people have to vote. Oops, hold on. Political models of voter behavior. All right, so this just has 4 terms, and I went over this in a recent video. So party line voting. I think we had a multiple choice question on this recently. It's when you vote for every candidate running for office down a party. Prospective voting, think of the future, right? Someone's prospect. It's when you vote based on what you think will happen in the future. Rational choice voting means you consider all these positions and you're applying rationale. And then retrospective, you're looking back. So how did people perform, right? How did this party achieve its goals? So there's one. Motor Voter Act of 93. Now that's something we did not go over. It was used to increase voter registration and make it easier for Americans to register and maintain their registration. So it's just part of the civic participation, representative democracy. This law requires that citizens be allowed to register to vote by mail using forms provided by the states. That's become a big issue since this last election, right? So maybe they could tie in this Motor Voter Act of 93. All right, if you want to go look at that some more.
Does the United States have a low voter turnout?
Yeah, we do.
So,
Yes.
like, would that be a result as to why they made that act?
Exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm. To try to also to make it easier for people with disabilities, make it easier for them to vote, right? Provide public assistance for people, maybe it's hard to get to a polling place, right? Things like that. So yeah, this was one of those ways to try to help with that. Yep. Conventional political participation. All right, that is what most people engage in, conventional, right? Not everyone is maybe as interested as you guys are. But it includes what most people do. You register to vote. Maybe you join a party. Maybe you attend political meetings like your town hall. Maybe you donate campaign funds. Maybe you do work on a political campaign. Maybe you do take it up levels and run for office. Maybe you vote, but that's conventional political. What the average way people get involved. Okay, let's see. This is the American Political Ideologies and Beliefs. So this is the Federal Reserve System. That doesn't seem like that's the right category. The Fed, right? This was created by Congress in 1913 as the independent central bank. I think my most recent video on economics goes over this. So if you need to learn more about it, I did that. They give discount rates to combat inflation. They determine the rate at which banks can borrow money, right? It impacts the nation's monetary policy because it regulates the money supply, right? The Fed, the Federal Reserve. Party platform, right? Party platforms outline the philosophy, practice, and goals of a party and the candidates running for office from that party. It's adopted at the party's national convention. If you really defer over a platform, it can cause to a splintered party. Some may see signs of that happening in our parties now, not necessarily. The party platform is a statement of the party's principles, and very often the party's presidential nominee strays from the original platform during the campaign, if it's about getting votes. All right, let's do one more. Fiscal policy. Ooh, more money stuff. It's a term that denotes how the economy is managed as a result of government spending and borrowing and the amount of money collected from taxes. All right, there's two approaches to fiscal policy, the Keynesian Economics and supply side economics. Once again, I went over that in my last video if you want to go over those two. I went over those pretty much in detail. All right, here we go. This is a big pile. Coalition building. That's sort of self-explanatory, right? It's the alliance of special interest groups. Maybe you mentioned that in your FRQ. With the purpose of achieving the same goal. Coalitions usually form based on similar ideology. They use both direct lobbying and grassroots lobbying. They combine resources and attack an issue on many different fronts. They may have to compromise in order to work together, right? So they work, coalitions are built based on goals that are similar. They work together to achieve common goals, where the benefits outweigh the financial costs. So this is almost common sense if you look at the coalition building. Ooh, all politics is local. All right, this, I don't know if we talked about this. I feel like we should have. This is known, this was quoted by Democratic Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill. He was Speaker from 77 to 87, and you hear this phrase, all politics is local, constantly. All right? He was explaining how the behavior of congresspersons on the local level was the determining factor of how voters perceived their representatives. The phrase took on a new meaning when candidates tried to nationalize a local campaign. Let's do more here. Ooh, this is a good one. Constitutional requirements to run for president. I know we had like a quiz on this, what are the different things. So they have to be 35. They have to be a natural-born citizen. They must reside in the U.S. for at least 14 years. And they must take an oath of office where they swear or affirm to carry out the responsibilities of the presidency and pledge to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. There has been proposed amendments so that if you were born in another country and became nationalized, you can run. Has not passed, but I see that passing in our lifetime. We'll see what happens. All right, 2 more piles. Yeah, definitely. Oh, I just saw public opinion. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Ooh, oh my gosh, Kenneth, look which card I just pulled up.
Yay.
Do you want to talk about that for a minute instead?
I mean, I love that case.
Yes. No, it says here that, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like it's quite a case because it relates to so much stuff
Yeah.
in the world. It's just like to me, it just surprises me this case because it not only brings stuff from the United States, it brings stuff from war and like
Yeah.
interconnections between countries and like their relationships and war and history. It just amazes me.
And I'm hoping for your case that the FRQ for the SCOTUS case is on this, or at least there'll be a multiple choice question on it.
I hope so too.
The significance says the government misused its authority of prior restraint when it asked the courts to censor the publication. So I'll still do 3 more because I know you sort of know that one's solid. All right, let's see. Establishment clause. Remember that establishment clause is part of the First Amendment that deals with freedom of religion. Right? Thomas Jefferson called for a wall of separation between church and state. The clause was intended to prevent the federal government from supporting a national religion. Right? The court has been inconsistent in its rulings that deal with the Establishment Clause, placing limitations on government support of religion, while supporting a government's entity's right to recognize religion. Right? Can they put a manger in a town hall kind of thing? All right, so remember, besides Establishment Clause, there's the Free Exercise Clause. Assembly and petition of grievances and principles. When we saw Congress debating the corona requirements, one of the senators was like, people can't cause grievances against their government, and Fauci was like, yes, they still can. And all right, so the right of people to gather in places and express their point of view without government interference, the right of people to freely associate with groups they choose, the right to petition government officials for policies they want. I think that's what they were alluding to at that time. And then remember, this deals with, remember we went over time, manner, place, right? It has to be balanced with time, manner, place. This one was the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Remember, those are the Reconstruction Amendments. 13th, abolished slavery. 14th, defined citizenship. And it forbids states from denying citizens the right to the Constitution guarantees, right? Due process, equal protection under the law. And then the 15th gave former slaves the right to vote and prohibits states from denying the right to vote based on race. Still denying them based on gender, but not based on race. Right? These all passed as a direct result of the Civil War. That's why they're called Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, 15th. Okay, I got one more pile, and then if you guys want me to go over any more, I can, or we can call it a day. Okay. Okay, a filibuster. You probably know what a filibuster is. They're floor speeches that trying to prevent the Senate from taking a vote. They are permitted by a Senate rule that allows 41 senators to control debate on pending legislation, unless 60 senators vote to cut off the debate, and that's known as cloture. The longest filibuster, this is a random fact, but it's good to know, was by Strom Thurmond in 1957, when he held the Senate floor for 24 hours and 18 minutes. Did he have to go to the bathroom? I don't understand that.
With no breaks, right?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Wow.
And he was trying to block the Civil Rights Act of 1957.
He was committed.
Right, yeah. Can you imagine being so, committed that like people don't have equal rights based on race that you
That's quite
cross.
sad too.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. Um, so the filibuster gives the minority the power to stop the Senate from considering new business. There's often been like, ideas or threats to end it. In 2013, the Senate passed new rules eliminating the filibuster for presidential appointees and federal judges, except for extraordinary circumstances. So they can still filibuster on some things, just not everything. I almost wish there was a filibuster going on in school this year. We just could have watched it like in the background forever. Family and Medical Leave Act. That would be an interesting one for an FRQ this year due to the coronavirus and everything. This was from 93. This was another one by Clinton, just like the Welfare Reform Act we mentioned. It enables employees to take unpaid leave for the purpose of taking care of a sick family member, or if the employee cannot perform their job because they're injured. So it provides for 12 weeks of unpaid leave for reasons that include childcare, health-related issues, things like that. This was one of the first major policy initiatives supported by Clinton. It was passed by Congress. Many Republicans opposed this, saying it would hurt small businesses. All right, and we do have to do one more or two more here. Already. The Graham Redman Act. I think we only mentioned this once in the beginning of the year. It was a goal to eliminate the federal budget deficit by 1990. Of course, you know that didn't happen. It created a series of budgetary targets that would reduce the deficit through automatic budget cuts if they didn't agree on certain voluntary cuts. One half of the cuts had to come from domestic spending programs. The other half had to come from defense spending. So, obviously, we know it didn't work. Let's do one more. And then if these are multiple choice questions, you'll be so happy you were here today. Oh, okay. House leadership structure. The minority party, House minority whip. I know I had a video where I went over the parts back in the day. Okay, so the minority whip is a member of the minority party. Second most powerful position after the minority leader in their party. They're called their whip because the key role of the whip is to keep the minority party unified by keeping its members in line. Steve Scalise, minority whip, keeps tabs on how the members will line to vote, reports to the minority leader regarding the status of upcoming votes. They're also known as the disciplinarian, right? If the party members don't follow the whip's instructions, the member can be removed as a chair of a committee. Oh, wow, we just saw Liz Cheney removed, right? But of course, she was voted on a little bit different, but very similar. They might not get campaign funds for re-election. All right. What do you guys think? Is this helpful just to go over things like this?
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, this is a lot of stuff. There's no way they would ask you about all these things, but the more you keep practicing, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, I mean, at least, like you get more stuff in that you haven't heard of. So like you can connect it to past stuff that you've learned before.
Right. There you go.
Then you get to have like a wider knowledge. So like if you get a question that's similar but not quite it, you can actually relate it because you have that knowledge.
Exactly, right? It's all about those connections in your brain. Yeah, you never know what questions you'll get, that's for sure. That's why the more you practice, the better. All right, so I'll still have an office hours tomorrow, and then I'll post on Classroom when we can maybe take a quiz retake or when you could go over review work. And next class, I'm going to put a Google form probably tomorrow. If you guys have specific things you want to go over before, on our last day, I'll give me some guidelines to prep for this weekend.
Definitely. So I have to.
You're learning, Alex. I'm glad that you're connecting it to your family. I just read that in the chat now. So yeah, right, making connections to your own lives.
Oh, can we do that?
Oh, like in your FRQ?
Like maybe like for an example or something.
I don't know. I would be mindful. I think it's good to make personal connections to help you remember. Like I think Alex is going to remember the Family Medical Leave Act in 1993 in Clinton.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can do like how it affects society, and we can like the community. So like if we see this issue is actually happening to many people and it affects me as well,
Yeah, exactly.
maybe we can connect it that way.
Yeah. And Alex, yeah, it's better than not having anything there, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you think these graders would want a personal story now and then after reading like boring FRQ after FRQ, but they want to make, if you do that, just make sure you're explaining like what what this medical leave act is or something,
No, definitely.
keep it as much of it as informative as you can. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
All right. Well, if I don't see you tomorrow, have a good weekend, and we'll do this.
Yes. Have a good weekend, Ms. Bone.
You too.
Goodbye, Alex.
Yes, tomorrow. Oh, that's right. All right.